Welcome, friends. It's late December, and you know what that means. It is Scaremas 2025. I have two stories for you, one tonight and one tomorrow. I am super excited to bring you these stories as I got permission from some Redditors to bring them to life and bring them to you guys. Tonight's story is from pentyworth223. I'll leave a link down below in the description so you can go check out the author himself and the story in its entirety. So as always, sit back, relax, grab something to drink like a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and enjoy Scaremas Eve 2025. I've always been drawn to the cold, to the kind of isolation only the dead of winter can offer. There's something about the snow-blanketed silence that settles over the world that feels sacred. So, when I got the chance to stay in a remote cabin in northern Minnesota for a week, I jumped at it. The cabin belonged to a friend of my uncle's, a retired logger named Red. He was the kind of man who wore flannel like a second skin and could whittle a masterpiece out of a branch without breaking a sweat. Red gave me the key, warned me to keep the fire stoked, and offhandedly mentioned, "Watch yourself out there. These woods have a way of changing a man." I laughed it off. Everyone likes to make the wilderness sound more mysterious than it is. The first 3 days were perfect. I'd wake up to the glow of the sun filtering through frost-coated windows, spend the day hiking the trails, and return to the warmth of the cabin by evening. The woods were alive with the sounds of nature, snow crunching beneath my boots, the distant howls of coyotes, the occasional rustle of something moving just out of sight. It wasn't until the fourth night that I noticed the silence. It crept in gradually. No bird song in the morning, no distant howls at night. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The only sound was the crackling of the fire and the occasional creak of the cabin settling in the cold. I chalked it up to the weather, but by the fifth day, unease had settled in my chest like a stone. The trails I'd grown familiar with seemed different. Trees gnarled and twisted in ways I didn't remember. Paths that seemed to double back on themselves, leading me in circles. The air carried a strange scent, metallic and sharp, like rusted iron. It clung to me, making my nose sting and my stomach churn. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but the nagging feeling that I wasn't alone wouldn't let me shake it. That evening I decided to stay close to the cabin. As the sun set, the world outside the frosted windows seemed darker than it should have been. The firelight flickered weakly, casting long, flickering shadows that danced around the walls. Around midnight, I heard the first sound, a distant, bone-deep crack, like a tree snapping in half. The noise made me jump. I sat bolt upright, straining to listen. The wind had picked up, howling around the cabin, but there was something else buried beneath it, a low, guttural growl that seemed to vibrate in my chest. I didn't sleep that night. At dawn, I ventured outside, hoping the light of day would chase away the unease that had gripped me. Instead, I found tracks in the snow. They weren't human, but they weren't quite animal either. Long, narrow impressions with clawed toes that dug deep into the frozen ground. The tracks circled the cabin. I told myself it was just a bear, a big one, maybe starving from hibernation, but the claw marks etched into the cabin's wooden door suggested something else entirely. They were too precise, too deliberate, as if whatever had made them wasn't just scratching, it was testing. Searching. I spent the rest of the day barricading the door and windows, piling furniture against the walls and keeping the fire roaring. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, that nothing would happen. But by the time night fell, I was shaking. And then the screams started. They didn't sound human. High-pitched and wailing, the kind of sound that makes your teeth ache and your skin crawl. They came from deep in the woods, at first faint and distant, but growing louder. Closer. I could feel it more than hear it, a thrumming vibration in the walls, in my chest. The fire crackled weakly, its light dimming as the shadows pressed in closer. Then came the scratching. It started at the front door, slow and deliberate, a soft scrape of claws against wood. My breath caught and I pressed my back against the far wall, clutching the fireplace poker like it was some kind of talisman. The scratching moved, circling the cabin, growing louder as it dragged across the walls and windows. I saw it then. At least I thought I did. A flash of movement in the dark. A tall, gaunt silhouette with limbs too long and joints that bent the wrong way. Its eyes glinted faintly, reflecting the dying firelight, and its teeth. God, Its teeth were the color of old bone, jagged and yellowed. I froze. It stopped. And then it spoke. Hungry. It rasped, the word dragging out into an almost whimpering growl. I don't remember deciding to run, but I remember the panic, the surge of adrenaline that pushed me to fling the door open and sprint into the woods. The cold hit me like a wall, but I barely noticed. Behind me, the door slammed shut, the creature's guttural screech splitting the night. I ran blindly, snow crunching beneath my boots, branches clawing at my face and arms. The woods seemed endless, the trees twisting and warping, as though alive, their shadows writhing like serpents in the moonlight. The thing followed, its movements erratic and jerky, the sound of its pursuit a cacophony of snapping branches and guttural snarls. I could feel its presence behind me, a suffocating weight that pressed against my back, driving me forward. I don't know how long I ran before I tripped, my foot catching on a root hidden beneath the snow. I hit the ground hard, the impact knocking the wind from my lungs. When I looked up, it was there. It stood at the edge of the clearing, its emaciated frame towering over me. Its eyes burned with a dull, sickly light, and its mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile. It reached for me, its claws outstretched, and I swear I felt the cold radiating from its body, an unnatural, bone-deep chill that sapped the strength from my limbs. In that moment, I thought I was going to die. Desperation does strange things to a person. My hand closed around a jagged rock, and I hurled it with all the strength I could muster. The rock struck the creature's head with a sickening crack, and it recoiled, letting out a blood-curdling screech that made my vision blur. I didn't wait to see if it would recover. I scrambled to my feet and ran, my legs burning, my lungs seizing with every ragged breath. Somehow, I found my way back to the cabin. The creature didn't follow, or if it did, it stayed just out of sight, its presence lingering like a shadow at the edge of my vision. I barricaded myself inside and waited, clutching the fireplace poker like a lifeline. The dawn came slowly, the first rays of light cutting through the gloom and chasing away the lingering shadows. I stepped outside, half expecting it to see it waiting for me, but the woods were silent again. Too silent. I left the cabin that morning, hiking back to the nearest road and flagging down a passing car. I didn't look back. For weeks after, I tried to convince myself it wasn't real, that the isolation, the cold, had made me imagine it all. But the scratches on the door, the tracks in the snow, and the lingering metallic scent on my clothes told a different story. I don't go into the woods anymore, not alone, but every now and then when the nights grow long and the wind howls through the trees, I think about that thing, about the way it looked at me, not just with hunger, but with recognition. I've started dreaming about it too. The clearing, the screeches, the feeling of cold claws brushing against my skin, and every time I wake up, I feel that same pull I did back then, a whisper in the back of my mind telling me to go back, because something about it feels unfinished. And the hunger, it wasn't just its hunger, it's mine now too. So guys, what did you think of tonight's story? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, I wanted to give a big shout out and a big thank you to pentyworth223 over on Reddit for being so kind as to let me use his story for tonight's episode. Again, I'll leave a link down below in the description for you to go check out the author himself and this story in its entirety. Make sure to go support both. New story coming out tomorrow, and trust me, this is a good one as well, so you don't want to miss it. And as always, until tomorrow, I'm Reaper, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Be merry and stay scary, my friends.